this computer and watch my CPU melt down. Okay, let's figure out what's going on with this template giving you a problem. You're trying to get the, what is it, 1199 or 1190 or?
1190, yeah.
Okay.
So now this is kind of a two-parter because I realized after I got this that if I get this to work, I could remove having to pass it the version number, right? What I would like this to do is be callable, and I should probably open up the CRD as well so you can see where this is getting used. Let's go look at this. So what I am doing is saying if it's namespaced, and I'm thinking I probably shouldn't even need to pass the version, but if this is true, do a roll, and if it's not, do cluster roll, and that operates throughout this CRD RBAC, right? Now, rather than trying to do this where I check the version each one, and we talked about in chat earlier that version 0.4 would blow up, I thought, okay, let's make this even easier. Because I noticed there was this parse version, so I thought, let me do something similar and say define this as gitlab-operator is namespaced, right? Now, ideally, what I would like to do is say if the person doing the deployment has set this inside namespace to true, it's just going to come back true. Period, end of story. That allows, if you want to be testing like arbitrary branches, that's fine. If it's going to match this regex version, right, then if it's greater than 4 or 0.4, return true. If it's not greater than, that's going to be false. And then in general, it's just false. So if you're testing arbitrary branches, you have to set it to true. If your version is greater than, which the version should be greater than for anything where you're testing it, because it should pull version out of the operator, as I hope it would, it should return true. And then everything else is just going to default to false.
Okay. Let me check something here. Shift T.
And note that I have not been able to test this logic yet because I can't get the template to compile. So.
Okay. I'm not entirely surprised. Your define GitLab operator is namespaced. What context do you pass it?
What I would like to pass it is no.
Call it, what do you pass? Yeah, that's going to break as hell. So let me explain why, right? You're actually telling it what context to pass, and then the dot inside of it is actually that context. So you're passing it dot values dot version, right? So now you've scoped yourself into dot values dot version. So when you go back, don't change anything. Go back to the other one so we see the function definition. Dot is actually dot values dot version as passed to this chart. So the first thing you do is coalesce dot versus master, right? So if dot has a value, use that as opposed to master, right? So when you then turn around and go dot values dot gitlab, there's no dot values dot master dot values dot do. You see?
Okay. Okay.
And
So
second,
there's
the dot values dot gitlab dot operator, because this is, you're now inside of that chart. When you're rendering, there is no dot gitlab dot operator. You're already at gitlab dot operator. So you actually got extra scope there, because as you go down, globals stay in the full tree, but when you get to each subchart, it's cut off through inheritance. So you have the base chart, which is the big global one, and then you go into the GitLab set of charts, and that cuts GitLab off and then passes all of global and everything under GitLab. And then when you go into the operator chart as a part of the GitLab chart, you end up having operator and everything above it cut out, and now it's just version, inside namespace, etc. It's just values.version, values dot, right? And then you also have the globals namespace above that, right? Globals inherit to every chart. Everything else is scoped to the inheritance tree.
Okay.
So two things are the problem in this function. One, if you want to use values.inside namespace, I would pass it just dot instead of values.version, because then you can specifically check values.version. Second, you have to take all of gitlab-operator out. You're already there. You're already in that namespace, so that whole thing can just go away, right?
Okay.
Second, I guess I should say third, instead of trying to do version parsing yourself, there's already a function there in the template that tells you the version of the operator.
And that would be this one.
Yes.
Okay. So if I use that, that gives me either a string or a number.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm doing is checking for the number, checking if it's numbered and going yes or no on that. Anything else I return false. Unless explicitly set to true.
Effectively, yeah, you can save yourself a lot of trouble just by using some, because that's the image version, right? When we do that, we're going to specify the tag. And that's going to win out by default as opposed to everything else. So that's the logic for figuring out which version you're on is there. Then you can do a attempt to convert to a float, and if it works, then you have a numeric version, and then you can do the greater than comparison, which is effectively what you're doing. However, are we making it too complex?
The original way I had done this prior to adding this function is, well, I can show you. I guess it's not right there. Git show. I just set this this namespace as a thing that you can set in the values always to false, and you just set it and just use it this way.
Okay.
But then I thought that that was adding an extra thing here that would have to go away later when we convert it to be all roll. I thought it'd be easier to just make it a function where it can calculate these things in a different way, and you only set this somewhere if it's needed. So.
Okay. So let me give you a second opinion on the simple way of just doing is namespace, right? If we use is namespace to gate whether or not the word cluster is included, right?
Yep. Then
the only thing we have to care about is, did they tell me I should have only a namespace, right? Because we'll default to clustered by setting it to false. And then if the operator of the chart specifically said, I want you to treat the operator as namespaced, only then do we actually have it blow up in our faces in the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because remember, we explicitly say, no reuse values. So when we change this default to true in the future, and then somebody provides the value of false, we tell them, hey, don't nuts with this setting anymore. Because we know that it should have a default value of true. But if somebody provides it as a values file and its value is false, this is being in the future, then we know that they're providing something erroneous and they need to know. So we have that option. That's one way. It does mean at some point we're going to have this deprecation thing floating around, and a couple of versions later we'll have to just rip it back out. Right? But we may be able to rip it back out before the operator is even GA. So that's one way to view it. The other way is the way that you, excuse me, seem to be trying to do it, right? Which is to go, if the version appears to be a string or numerically more higher value than 0.4. Correct?
No.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood. Explain the
So,
way you're attempting to do it.
so the way I'm attempting to do it is if I have set GitLab-operator inside namespace to true, which is not set anywhere, if I set that in my file I feed or I set up with my Helm set line, then it will always be true. It will put the operator in the namespace. If the version of the image is greater than 0.4, then it will always put it in the namespace. And if it's anything else, master, arbitrary branch, whatever, then it's going to put it back to cluster rules.
So you okay, so one, your values don't line up. You showed is namespace, and then your value you're checking is inside namespace.
Yep, I didn't save the last file. That's why.
Okay.
So, wait, no, that's right. Is namespace here, and then this is the one if this.
Yeah. Now, I would do a specific Boolean true evaluation on that. There you go. Because is namespace 5 counts as truthy, right?
Yep.
And for the moment, you want to explicitly turn this on. So here's my problem with the whole version E check that you have in place right now.
Okay.
It's simple and straightforward in that what happens if the default value is 0.5, but somebody has it set to a branch that was 0.5 stable? Right? Now, that's why I'm saying don't try to do the matching yourself on whether or not it's a numeric version. That's why I'm saying use the parse version instead.
The parse versions you return a v0 point something.
Correct.
So how do I do greater than 0.4 if I use this?
Believe it or not, easier than it sounds. We do some fun jazz, but we shouldn't be doing this in multiple places. What I'm trying to say is we shouldn't be detecting and jumping around in multiple locations. So okay. The simple answer is that you can actually take that, the output of that, which is a string, because all Helm templates return strings. You take the output of that, strip V off the front, and do a to float or float 64 pass, right?
Okay.
If it passes that, and it is therefore is convertible into a float, then you do a version comparison.
Okay. And now you said this is gonna take into account whether or not we pass the tag.
Yes.
Just for my own benefit, how does it figure that out? Because I don't see it invoking tag or looking at tag at all here. So.
Actually, you're right. Charts, GitLab, charts, operator, templates, operator deployment, which falls into the image, uses values.image.repository, and then coalesce values.image.tag, include app version. Oh, it doesn't take the tag into account.
So that was one of the things I was going to test for, was to see if that would be a fly in the ointment, so to speak.
Okay, well, there's two ways to approach this. So if somebody supplies a tag, but doesn't bump the version, then the image that is used will be whatever the tag is, and whatever the contained version is, we won't know.
Right, and that will default to false unless they set inside namespace to be true.
So the bigger question at that point is, what should that default be? Because either there is no tag value and we're using whatever the version is, or there is a tag and we're not even using the version at all, and then it's really up to the person who chose the tag of should it be on, should it not be on, compared to the default value.
Yeah, and I think that's the yep. So.
Yeah, because we do a call to parse version on with the parameter of .values.version. Charts, GitLab, charts, operator, values. Yeah, we specifically don't set image.tag for that.
So I guess that becomes a question in my mind, is if the onus here goes to a developer, at some point when we default this to true, they're just going to always, if we want this default to true, I guess we would set inside namespace in the chart at a later date.
Yeah, we would just flip inside namespace from false to true.
But my thought is, can we leave it undefined for now, where if you want it, you define it and do the direct truthy comparison to if it's true, and then just add it when we need it later?
That might be the better option. Because we're working specifically in the chart, scope-wise. We're working specifically within the chart's values. So is namespaced. If not defined, will automatically be a falsy. We do the Boolean check. Then
yeah, exactly.
okay, and then we do the version check, and we assume that since I merged it and 0.5 hasn't been tagged, that when 0.5 is tagged, it will then default to behavior.
Yep.
Yeah, that might work better.
Now, here's another question.
And now, to be fair, at the same time, there's no difference between inside namespace not being present and inside namespace false. Just saying.
Right. So let me ask this maybe in a different way. What if let's talk through what if we invert this scenario? What if we say that give me 1 second. So what if we look at this from the inverse way? Let me get my brain back into the game here. What if we say that by default the operator is namespaced unless the version is equal to or less than 0.4? You're muted.
We want it less than 0.5. Yes, because when we tag it and it has a version, it will be 0.5. 0.4 does not contain this change.
I said less than. I said it's on unless it's less than or equal to 0.4.
Oh, I missed the equal. My apologies.
No worries. I always think of less than or equal to an existing version and not defaulting in case the versioning changes after. That's probably an oddity of dealing with other version systems I've worked with in the past, but
yeah, if we had versioning, like Semver versioning, this would be easier. But we're not currently using Semver, so.
Yeah, but I almost think I like that better because that makes it a much simpler item. It's always on unless the version is this or below, or in the case of what you had said, 0.5 or below 0.5. And then we always get, and that way it's a very simple if or, it's not all this extra space. And if you're dealing with it on a branch, because master has this on there, then whatever you build from master is going to have it. And if you don't, we just know as developers, hey, rebase to master, come on, right? Because developers should be working from latest master. And that was merged earlier today. Does that make more sense from a keeping it simple point of view?
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining with that. I'm saying I didn't catch the equals the first time. So I was like, what?
Oh, no, I just mean in general, do you like this idea better of saying it's always on unless, as opposed to it's off unless? Like inverting our logic so it's a simpler logic set. It's always on unless your version is one of these versions we know didn't do it. Because then that means that if it's the master branch or any other branch, by default, the operator is namespaced, which means if someone says, hey, I'm trying to do this with the operator, and we go, have you rebased the latest master? No? Do that now, which developers should do that anyway, right before they're going to submit a merge request. Right? So
yeah, because we ship app version master version 1.7.5 in the chart .yaml, and then the version 0.4 in the values.yaml. So if we look at GitLab version, that uses the app version, which is 1.7.5, and the GitLab version globally, where you do the fun specification of stuff. Then we have the parse version, which does the fun jaunt of which thing you're supposed to do, which actually operates on operator's version value.
all right.
Yeah, I would say for now that, yeah, you're right. We should probably do default this value to true if it's a branch. And then version of less than or equal to 0.4 would make it false, unless somebody specifically sets it to false.
So if we do this way, I'm just going to kind of do this while we look at it, because I have not dealt with much of this whole templating, like not this particular kind of thing before. So
Right.
I'm going to say that we're going to define, we're using this. So we're going to say the $ version. I really don't need a passive version because it's already going to be there. So this is going to be
Include
that, and then we're going to put
.values.version.
because this is going to operate inside of the operator.
Right.
Now, I guess I'm kind of confused. Why is this operator template here in charts GitLab templates as opposed to charts GitLab charts operator templates?
The one that you are working on, the is namespaced, could possibly be in the operator because it's specific to the operator. But one of the reasons this falls into the decisions and the design docs when it comes to development, which says all templates should be at the level at which they're most effective, right? If it's GitLab specific and has no other uses, it should be as a part of the GitLab chart. If it is specific only to the chart in which you're doing fidgety things, then it should be inside of that chart. But if it can ever be reused or should be reused by any other chart, you put it as close to that set of charts as possible. So the parse version, if I go and check that, grep ren charts for gitlab-operator dot. That is used only within the operator. Yeah, this could be one of those sets where it doesn't necessarily need to be there.
So how about,
For now, add it to where it is, and then you would do a separate MR to relocate it all.
that was exactly what I was going to say. Put it here and go with what's already there, and then pull it back afterward.
That would just be a development improvement.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. All right. Let's see here.
Because it looks like there's actually already a helper. So I'd have to find out why the operator template is in GitLab templates at all.
Yep. And then, so we have this like that, and then, okay. So I can get rid of this. Actually, you probably want to do this back to string for the regex later, right?
No, you don't need to because it's already a string. All sprig templates return strings. If you want to convert the type from a template to a specific type, you actually have to convert it because it assumes that you're outputting it. So it's a string.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And we don't really need inside namespace to be true. So I'm going to say if, and I'm going to assume that backslash is escaping, and it's going to come back with a V. So
Correct.
if it matches this, which keeps it simple, if that matches in this way,
okay,
and then now I need to strip off the V here somehow to do a comparison. So
ring manipulations. Whee.
And you know what? We should do 4 in case we do. Would we ever do that?
What?
Would we ever do this 0.4.1?
Use assembler? Probably
Yeah.
so, because not having a semver is making this harder.
Okay, so we need to do that less than or equal to. All right, so if that matches, we want to
Well, the good news is you can actually just do it in line with the conversion. But yeah.
oh, you can? Okay.
So there is a string manipulation function. You are looking for trim prefix.
Trim prefix. Let me go back to that.
Which I don't remember this when this version came into play, so we may have a fun one.
Trim prefix. I don't see that on that sprig documentation thing you threw over earlier. Let me see if it's here. Oh, there it is. Just got to go into the specific string thing.
Yeah.
So, okay. So
now
this. Yep.
There you go.
So we pipe it to that, right?
Yes, and please indent the if.
Oh,
yeah, that works.
I should probably better do it this way so that we keep this removing lines. We don't have extra lines.
Well, because you see the little tack after the curly braces?
Yeah.
It's going to rip it out either way. I generally leave that against the wall so that it's not messing with your eyes.
Got it. And I kind of prefer that as well. So, yeah. All right. So if this, then we're going to do if this, if it's less than 0.4.
You actually want less than or equal?
Okay, I didn't see a thing for less than or equal to. Is there a? I would do a less than and then and also like a less than or equal to. So if I can make that just less than equal to, that's much better.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see here. I check the math functions. This is probably not where I need it anyways. Nope. Okay, that's what I figured. Flow control. Nope. I think we're going to a default behavior. I believe. Go templates. Less than. I believe it's just LE. And yes, for anyone who watches this in the future, it's annoying because you have to deal with Go template text and sprig and Helm custom adds. Because, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because when I look at the Helm chart template guide from the Helm website, it says operators are implemented as functions that return a Boolean value to use EQ, NE, LT, GT, and or not, etc. Place the operator to front, but there's no actual list. So I will try LE, and because you say it's there, so I will believe you. So
well, they said etc. So I'm just kind of going to assume, yeah, if else with range blah, Boolean tests, blah blah blah. Yeah. Okay. Operators are functions. Operators are implemented as functions that return a Boolean value to use EQ, NE, LT, GT, and or not, etc. Place the operator at the front of the statement, followed by its parameters as you would a function. Yeah. That's a fun one. I'm pretty sure there is an LE, but we'll know instantly because it will explode.
exactly. And I don't see, I'm looking for GT in this, what I think is the source. And I'm going to guess that this is not actually the source, maybe the source for just the documentation.
Yeah,
So
GT does actually exist. So,
yeah. Also, I was using a known exist to see if I could find the code and then go look for its friends. Okay, we'll go with LE. So if it's less than or equal to this, it is going to be false because we are changing how this logic is doing.
Right.
Otherwise, true. And
Now, are you ready for a what scenario?
go ahead.
What's the difference between true and false and when they are strings?
A string is always true.
So if somebody calls this template, see what I'm saying?
Somebody calls this template with
Uh-huh.
a random string.
Mm-hmm.
So
It will return the string false, which has a value of what in Boolean terms?
true. So how do
Welcome
so
to
I need
Hell
to
templates.
please tell me that exists. Please tell me that exists.
I will go see, but you can't put it here. You have to put it where it is called. Yeah. Which is why I almost always go, please remember to do equals blank true. Because, yeah. You have to, basically, here's the thing. You've got two options. An empty string is the same thing as false.
Yep.
How stupid is that?
Yeah, I know this behavior all too well from a certain other open source product that I love and work on, and it drives me nuts when I write jobs. So
Wait, right. Which is exactly why I hate falsy behavior in the charts. Because this is the reason.
yeah,
Because if you return the string false, you're actually returning true. Hey.
yep. So let me just make
God
sure
forbid, if you actually want something to be false and present, but has the ability to not be present and thus be false.
Yep.
Yes, programmers in the background, that is a brain bender. Yes, there is a way to do it. No, don't.
I'm just making sure that I have everything here. There's an if, there's an end, and now I need more end. Yep.
There you go.
I just had to count. I'm like 1 + 2 + 1 + 2 + 1. Great movie for those who are watching later, but there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're there.
Yeah,
all
the
right.
second end, by the way, for those folks, is he's ending the original if and then ending the actual define. And
Yep.
ungodly unfortunate, believe it or not, there are people who have templates that are multi-tiered structures in terms of logic, and they're all aligned to the wall. Try following that.
Yeah, I almost want to like.
Okay, so here's my next question for you. And I'm looking at this and I'm reading this. Why is your else on the false? Instead of an end and doing an else? Because what you're saying, if not a numeric version and less than 0.4 or
Yeah, I see what you're
less
saying.
than or equal to 0.4. There you go. Now you're catching it. You still need the else, but not on the second tier if.
Yep. So if it's that, end. Let's see, so if the regex matches that, if it's this, do this. We also need the else here. That's going to be true. Just see. Yep. Okay. That and grab that first. If the regular question matches that, do those things. And then that else is going to be true. That's the end of that if statement. Okay. So define opens, move in, set the version. If regular question match, if it matches that kind of a thing, we're going to check. If it's less than or equal to, it's going to be false, otherwise true. And that's what happens if this is all if the regex matches. If the regex doesn't match, it's always going to be true. And the main if.
That's logistically painful for my head. There should be only two, if at all, ideally. I mean, what you have will function. I just wish I could find a better way to express it.
Yeah.
Actually, you can. Just and it.
So
what you want to do is and then parenthesize, and then pull that entire logic block below, up, and then parenthesize that.
Yep. I'm in the middle of doing that. I don't know if your screen is caught up yet.
Yep, I'm seeing it.
Okay.
There we go. Now we only have to care about true and false.
So if that matches and it's less than that, false.
We only have one if statement now, so you don't need as many ends.
Yeah, it's if, else, and that to me makes sense.
Okay. Now the only unfortunate fact is we're staring at returning false that's actually true. So one way you can do this is actually just put in a line here. Just put in a template line that contains a comment that says, this is the false condition. So curly, curly. Yep.
Okay.
So then you can take out false and then put the tack curly, curly at the end of the else. I think it supports inline comments in that fashion.
Should be that because I don't want it to add lines.
Right. Don't do it to that one. I know for a fact you don't need to do it to that one because you're up in the pre-comment. It's not even a part of the function. I don't know that it's required here, but we'll find out in a minute.
Yep. So that gets us everything we want here.
Mm-hmm.
And then
we go
that
back
is
to the other one.
gitlab-operator is namespace. We do not need this anymore.
No, you just use a dot. You still have to pass it the context.
Okay.
So that's a hard requirement. But the good news is dot is the context you want to pass it. So
Okay, let me say if.
now, timeout. Let me catch you here. Because you returned a string that had a value, you don't have to do equals true here. Because you're returning a truthy behavior. You do still want that parameterized or parenthesized the way you have.
Oh, okay. So this is going to return, where is it? This will return nil.
Correct.
Which is falsy.
Well, it won't return nil. It will return an empty string, which is falsy.
Okay.
Yes, this is the lovely fun of Go template behaviors, folks.
It's bringing back old memories of when is null null in data analytics. Ooh.
Yes. When is null truly null? When null has been deleted. What?
Yeah, got the T-shirt for that one. Let's see. So this one has to be inverted because this one's only included if it's false.
So you just do if not.
Like that. Is it that or is it bang?
No, that's literally all you have to do. It's the word not.
Okay. Well, like I write not as that as well, so I just want to make sure it's.
Yeah, there is no logical operator of bang in the Go template. You actually, this is the whole pipelines thing.
Okay.
Right. So even operators are pipelines. Blah.
There's one more. Okay. So I'll buy that. Close that. And so let me get rid of that. So I'm going to say the my operator version is 0.5.
Okay. I'm going to give you a little bit of a pre-tip here. Go ahead and quit that. So there is a TAC-X operator to Helm template where you can tell it exactly which template to actually render. So in front of your sets, because it's going to be easier for you to read,
Okay.
do TAC-X, and then the path to the CRD RBAC. So you're going to want that chart GitLab. Yeah. You can just copy it from the line above. And now you'll only get that. Be much easier and faster.
Yes. So let's
So now we look at this and we see that you are not getting a cluster roll.
Yep.
Okay, so that's good.
Looking for that part. There's roles and role bindings. Okay. There's that. Okay. And then I will set this to 0.4. Cluster roll. You get cluster rolls and row bindings.
Okay.
There's no weird extra spacing. Good.
Okay. Now set that to V04.
V04?
Yeah, let's play with.
Yep.
Trust me, they'll find a way to break it.
Yeah. Right now I'm looking at sending it cats. Arbitrary branch names for the win. And we do V0.4.
Okay. Now do the same thing with 0.5.1.
Ta-da!
It looks like it's passing all the tests.
So I will buy that. Okay.
Now, there's one more thing we want to look at. Yes or no?
One more thing we want to look at. We've looked at what happens if we set the version. If we set the tag.
So if we set the tag but don't set the version, what do you get?
Okay. And all right.
So you have the tag set but not the version, so just go ahead and take the set out and see what happens.
Cluster roll.
Do you have version set? I don't see version set.
I don't have version set. I have a tag set. So we need to include tag in there maybe?
Do we? Let's double check our logic.
Okay.
So we're doing operator.parse version. Parse version cares only about version. Right?
Yep.
So what is the default value of version?
Default value of version.
What is the version entry in charts, GitLab, charts, operator?
0.4.
Correct. So did it behave as we expected?
Yes.
Good. That's all I wanted to point out, is that it does actually behave as we expected. That's all.
But we do want it, if she set the tag, do we want that to change the behavior?
No. Because we don't know what's in the tag.
So I will ask a separate question then.
Okay.
I have noticed that when we cut a release, we bump the version at the release cut. So should we cut the release and then bump the version after so that master is always the next version until we cut it again and bump it again? I don't know if this is an activity or behavior that's been discussed in regards to the team in general, but I'm used to master is always the next version and you bump it to the next version when you cut the release. So like if we're releasing right now 0.4, master should have 0.5. And when we cut 0.5, we cut it, and then the next thing we do is we just do a simple bump to 0.6 so that master is always one version ahead.
Right. So if anything, in this particular case, the operator as defined should not be version equals 0.4 in the master tree. In the master tree, it should say operator is master. And then we should have something actually updating the version of the operator to match the release version of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because this is the only thing that is actually locked outside of this chart.
Yeah.
To be fair, at the same time, there is a counterpoint. If ignoring whether or not the internal version reported of the operator, okay, because again, we don't know what's inside the image. We can't. It's literally not possible. We're saying version because that's what we understand. So we have to manually set that based on the cut release of the operator. Right? Currently there's no release tools behavior for the operator. So we're manually tagging and then manually changing the master tree, and then when we put that into a stable version, that's when that makes its way down. If somebody's dicking around with branches on the operator, they need to know what they're doing, because there's no way for the operator chart to know the internal version outside of a tagged version.
I can buy that.
Right? There's the, like, it can't go, hey operator, what's your version? It can't make the call to just populate this value. That's the annoying part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, instead of bothering with saying is namespaced or not, you change the version to something over 0.4, no matter what your tag is. If you're working from master and you know you need it namespaced, you set the version higher.
Yep. And since naming is always hard, is namespace, is that rational? Like, I feel like there's probably a better verb for this.
In this particular case, I would actually say we can probably just name it namespaced. Just take out the is and lowercase the n. Because we're going to basically be doing namespaced question mark from a Ruby standpoint.
Yep.
Which is effectively the same as, is namespaced? Yes, no. We're just making it slightly more sane. I don't think we have any templates that are funky like that.
4 substitutions seems to make sense to me. Yep. Okay. So made that change in both. So with that change made, I should fix my notes in the operator.
Yeah, we have no templates that have the word is in them. So
okay.
No need to do that.
Apparently words are hard.
If I remember correctly, we did something really jank with SSL behavior and ensuring that things were or were not configured. Just trying to find that template. Yes. So we have like gitlab.ingress.tls.configured. So that's already a standing behavior instead of having gitlab.ingress.tls.isConfigured.
That works for me. That's kind of why I asked, because I don't like long names, but I also don't like undescriptive names.
Yeah.
So
in this particular case, by adding D to it, we're doing a statement check. So it still makes logical sense to me.
Okay.
That apparently I inadvertently set a precedent, Lord knows when ago.
Stare decisis works for me. I don't mind that at all.
Yep.
So,
and now you've encountered the joy of true-false behaviors and template inclusion, resulting in false being true. Yeah.
Yes.
And how to get around it.
Yes. So let's see. Get diff.
Brain hurt.
Yeah. Get diff. So I need to get status. So let me add.
Yeah. I'm gonna say, don't forget you're gonna have to do some settings, behavior changes. to the documentation.
Yep, I already put some in there, and I just went and converted it to the newer things. So for reference, I'm going to squish all this together into a single commit. I'll push it up, and then I'll assign you the merge request to look over. And we can go from take the discussion from there. And I'm going to test this, obviously, because, you know.
Right. Actually, do me a favor and actually assign it to Hossein.
Okay.
Send it to him first. He's been working on a bunch of this stuff more often, and in this case, I'd like him to review it because he can send it over to me afterwards.
Okay. That's got everything. So now, I'm going to purge it. Do you want to go through and record the testing, or?
Nah.
Okay. Then I'm going to move this on forward. When it's all good, when I've confirmed that my changes work, I will write up the MR, write this up, and send it over to Hossein to confirm.
Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you for the eyes. Appreciate it. Yay for templating.
Yay.